Wow, I look very millennial hipster today. Interesting. Alright, well. Hello there. My name is Audra Wilson, and welcome to my fantasy world. Happy February. I didn't realize until a couple weeks ago that there were so many national recognitions going on this month as far as the U.S. is concerned, especially regarding food. We Americans really love our food, don't we? So not only is Black History Month going on all month, but there is, of course, Valentine's Day and Chinese New Year going on. And so I would recommend keeping a lookout for all those celebrations and tributes going on for any one of those things, all of them if you want. I myself am dedicating one post for each of them on my blog and on YouTube, alternating weeks. This week, of course, is Valentine's Day, as you can probably tell by the title. Next week will be Chinese New Year, and then the following week will be my Black History Month tribute to Maya Angelou. So definitely check those out, and definitely also check out all the other creators that are probably going to have some really awesome tributes. So thank you for watching my channel, but definitely check out some other channels for them. They probably have some really great stuff going on. So tell me which creators are making some really great content, giving tribute to any one of these three things in the comment section below. I'd love to hear from you guys. Also, if you like my content today, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell and enjoy. Also, please sign up for the newsletter on my website, audrabwilson.com. Next month, I am launching a subscriber-only page where you can get insight into the different worlds that I'm creating, and you'll also get insider sneak peeks. So that'll be coming soon. So definitely check out my website, audrabwilson.com. Check out the blog and any works, and have fun. Alright, so the love at first sight trope. The reason you probably clicked on this video. This one's a funny one. I honestly think that when I was in high school, it was a lot more hated than it is currently. Although that could be different, I don't know. I didn't actually, research it back then. But honestly, I feel that it's not as hated as it used to be, but there's still some vehement dislikes of this particular trope. So I decided to do a little bit of digging. So I took to Facebook, and I did post it on Twitter, although I think it got overshadowed by some other stuff. So shout out to the Facebook group Fantasy Writers Forever. So Monday I posted a question, what people thought about the love at first sight trope, whether they loved it, hated it, or were meh about it. And, I ended up having to make a fourth category because of the comments. I was thinking like a crazy person, because why would you ask writers that question and not expect, kind of long answers for the most part? I thought people would just put the little emojis that I put on there, and nope, people had a lot to say about it. So as of Monday night, this was the result. Now, I'm not going to post any people's comments or anything like that. I only took and counted how many people commented and kind of made my percentages from there. Here are the results. 16% said they loved it. 26% said they hated it. Another 26% said it was meh. And then 32% said it depends, with various reasons why. Now, this is just a very small look into what people's opinions are about it. I'm sure if I did this over the course of like a month, I would have a much more concrete result. But this was just a quick, what do people think about it? There were a lot of comments that were along the lines of it depends, and then explaining what it depends on. And some people just said they were okay with it, which I kind of put in the meh category. And then there were others that really hated it. Just flat out. Okay. Just a question, guys, I promise. Don't come at me. But yeah, there were some definite good comments on that. I was glad to see that most people were kind of in the it depends category, which wasn't actually up there. I was going to put them with meh, but some of them were good enough to where they would have been a love it, so I had to put them in their own category. And really what it came down to was it depends on the writing. If the writing is good, if it's done well, then they like it. So, you know, like I said, the it depends kind of did that. Some of the comments were just about that it is only really lust or attraction at first sight as opposed to love. And, you know, I can see where people are coming from. I used to be in that camp for a very, very long time. At least since about midway through high school, I was definitely in that camp. One of the lust comments actually did stand out pretty well, that they said that love is a choice and an action. And I agree with that to some extent. The concept of love is actually kind of both. It's a feeling, and then the act upon that feeling is also love. So it kind of comes together like this. It's not just one or the other. So at least that's my opinion of it. That's how I see the world and how I see the concept of love. So I kind of understood where they were coming from. And one of the hated comments actually stood out to me as well. They basically said that they hate the trope that they prefer when there are actual reasons to love somebody than just bang, we're in love. And again, I think any reader would agree with that statement. There has to be some substance to why they fell in love, especially if you're going to have them fall in love so quickly. I definitely understand that mentality as well. I actually said that exact same thing throughout high school, all of college, and it wasn't until I left school the first time that, actually, I think it was a year or two ago, that I kind of came around to the meh. And then I watched a video here on YouTube. I'm going to link it in the description below, but the channel is Shadowversity, and actually Shadowversity is pretty popular. Normally he talks about medieval weaponry and armor and castles and all this kind of really awesome stuff. He's kind of my go-to when it comes to historical weapons and armor and all the things that I just mentioned. Basically, he is an enthusiast of medieval life, and I love his channel, so definitely check that out. He has a lot of great content. But the specific video that kind of brought me out of the meh category, the meh camp on the trope love at first sight, was his video in defense of love at first sight. And I remember thinking, how can anyone, especially a guy who is enthused with medieval life and medieval weaponry and stuff, how does that correlate? How did he come up with that idea for a video? Two, how is that even something that he's interested in? So it got me very curious because I have a lot of respect for Shad. And it took a little while, but I became convinced that I didn't hate the trope, that I actually did love the trope as long as it was done well, as long as it was written well and the progression was understandable. So I am kind of a lover of Love at First Sight. So let me explain why. And also, how it can be written well so that it doesn't get all the hate that it does get. Because there is a lot of it. Again, as I said, I used to be a hater of the Love at First Sight trope. It was a huge thing of mine. I hated anything that was like that. And, you know, in fairy tales and whatnot, I was kind of my only exception. Disney was my only exception, and for the most part it still is because of what I'm about to get into. But one thing that people kind of don't get about the modern trope of Love at First Sight is the literal at first sight part. And then, of course, people immediately think that Love at First Sight means that it's true love. And that's not always the case. There are a lot of different avenues that still have the Love at First Sight trope, at least on one side, if not both. The at first sight part doesn't actually mean when their eyes first meet. It actually is more of when they meet, not just looks. I mean, yes, that is part of it, but that's not the whole scene. If you look at a lot of scenes that involve the at first sight thing, they usually still end up meeting and talking before anything else happens. Yes, we're used to thinking of Love at First Sight as the myths and fairy tales that have that in them, such as Cinderella or Snow White. I mean, I could probably name 100 of them right off the top of my head, but, you know, we're not going to do that because that would be a very long video. So let's just break it down a little bit. It honestly, nowadays, is very, very rare for me to see a book or a movie or TV show or whatever that has the literal Love at First Sight trope. It always is an attraction of some kind that leads to true love or something along those lines. Sometimes it doesn't lead to true love, just love, but, you know, I digress. One major critique that is understandable is that people think that it is unrealistic. And again, I used to be in that camp. Until I watched Shad's In Defense of Love at First Sight and realized that I actually went through it. I actually went through Love at First Sight with my husband. Let me explain. My husband and I met in 2015 for lunch on a Saturday afternoon. Every hour or so, we made another excuse to continue to talk and see each other. So much that we spent 8 hours from lunch until after dark. I think it was about 9 p.m. by the time we decided, okay, it's time to go home. Neither of us really realized it at the time how far things would go, and, you know, that was good. In Love at First Sight, the trope, and I'll get into this a little bit later, but it shouldn't be kind of noticeable right at first. It's a gradual thing. And so we would make this excuse every hour or so. We'd find a new activity, we'd do something, we'd continue to do something. And I had never had that experience before. I had never had somebody want to be around me for just that long that wasn't already a friend. We enjoyed each other's company, we loved each other's personalities, and there was just so much that we wanted to spend time together on that it ended up just being about hanging out and continuing to hang out. So honestly, the first few dates that my husband and I went on were extremely long. I cleared my entire day just to make sure that I had enough time to spend with him. And it was great. It's not like I realized it at the time, but I definitely knew that I would fall for him quickly. And I think that's the point of love at first sight. That it's not necessarily like full-on love, but it is an extreme attraction, an extreme emotional connection that you have with somebody, and you just want to be around them. And I still continue to want to be around him a lot to this very day. So there is something to be said for realistic love at first sight. Again, it wasn't noticeable at the time, but it definitely was noticeable looking back on it. The stages that people go through when they fall in love happened very quickly for us, and I feel very fortunate that it did. At the same time, it was kind of scary because I didn't believe in that sort of quick fall. So I was definitely in denial for a while. Okay, so what actually makes the love at first sight trope good? I think I've narrowed it down to 3 main concepts. Number 1, the meet cute. This is kind of a film term as far as I know, but it definitely translates to written works as well. And this is, of course, the first meeting. The personalities must be completely on display to where they're not really hiding much. Or if they are hiding stuff, that is kind of understandable why they're hiding it. And then, of course, the end of that meeting must have respect and further interest. Now, this can be one-sided or it can be mutual. And either one works. It's still part of the love at first sight trope. Notice I didn't say that you were completely in love. No. Most people don't even realize that they fell in love until much later than they actually do. Especially if they were like me and were in complete denial. Number 2, there is development over time. This is the thing that people don't actually tend to associate with love at first sight. They don't associate it with the trope because they're so used to the trope being like the fairy tales and myths. In a modern sense, that doesn't really work. People are complicated and they go at different paces. So, like I said, I went through this in my real life. Neither of us really knew it at the time, but my husband and I did develop even more and more and more and more feelings over time. It's a very gradual thing. Again, this is not true love at first sight. This is just the pieces of love. But, you can't really fit pieces of love at first meeting in a short conceptual trope box. Love at first sight just kind of sticks better, I guess. I don't know. Something along those lines. But again, this is the modern interpretation and desire that people have for this trope. So it's kind of more of a love at first meet, and then you gotta break it down from there. The main thing with the development part of the love at first sight trope is that the feelings just continue to grow and continue to get stronger and more loving as time goes on, and even in the face of hardships. And those hardships really make or break the story. And number 3, ending. Now, I'm not just meaning the end of the relationship. What I mean by ending is simply the results. Whether the results are them getting together and dating, whether it's marriage, whether it's sacrificing themselves for the other person, or some other sort of death situation, like Romeo and Juliet. That's not my favorite, but you do you. Could be any one of so many other things. But again, the ending just means results. So why does love at first sight get so much hate? Well, I think the biggest contributor, of course, is fairy tales. They have a lot of love at first sight stuff going on, and it's not always the best. And there is a lot, and I mean a lot, of very poorly written love at first sight tropes. But I gotta admit, I don't fault the trope for the poorly written stuff. I can definitely point out the flaws when it comes to the love at first sight trope. Obviously, any bang we're in love is kind of off-putting because nobody thinks that way. I like to think of the bam we're in love cliche is the best way I can put it. That cliche is kind of to use a Disney term, the Twitter-pated effect.
They're Twitter-pated.
Many fairy tales and their Disney counterparts, and, like this clip of Bambi, have this eyes meet and they're meant to be thing. But I don't think this trope deserves the hate. And if writers do it well, it should be praised. Any trope can be worth it as long as it is handled with care. And I do believe that all tropes should be given individual chances as opposed to just blanket hate. Even my comment about the Romeo and Juliet double suicide, if done well, which I'm not saying it's usually done well, to me it's usually not, but if it's done well, then I do enjoy it. So anytime you find a trope that you tend not to like, I don't know, just give it a try. And don't just say, ugh, I hate it, just because it can be done well. Anything can be done well. You just gotta sift through the shit first, unfortunately. Anyway, that's all I have for you today. Like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. I'd love to have your input. I post blogs on the website and videos on YouTube every Friday. Don't forget to sign up for beta reading and the newsletter, and follow me on Twitter and Facebook. As always, thank you so much for watching. Until next time.